The girl went to the office and asked the secretaries if her husband was in the office. They didn't have time to answer when she burst into his office. When she entered the office, the man asked why she had not notified him of her visit. The girl tore up the documents she had brought and said that she did not agree to the divorce. The man asked why she was against it. In fact, it was because she loved him, and the girl replied that her parents relied on him a lot. After all, he had invested heavily in the Hodgin group after their wedding. She asked her husband if his parents would accept their unexpected divorce. The young man replied that he would explain everything to them. The girl knew that it wouldn't work, but it was all she could do. And now all she had to do was accept it. When she ran out of the office, she couldn't see anything around her. Her husband's assistant was calling her, but she didn't hear. The girl headed for the elevator, realizing that this was the end. As she entered the elevator, she didn't even notice him following her. Her husband said he wanted to see her off. The girl asked if he wanted to meet her parents. The man replied that they already had dinner planned with their grandmother. The girl understood that this meant that a divorce was certain. She wanted to be with him a little longer. But when the young man said he would tell her parents everything this week and added that she shouldn't worry about it, Sarah ran out of the elevator and down the stairs. The girl cried because she understood that he only wanted to take her out to make sure that she agreed to the divorce. Sarah turned and told him that she would never agree to the divorce. Unable to keep her balance, the girl began to fall backwards down the stairs. The man reached out to her, but it was too late. The girl thought these were the last seconds of her life. It seemed like an eternity to Sarah, but it actually lasted less than a second. She fell to the floor, hitting her head hard. The girl lay covered in blood. 3 years ago, 28-year-old Ryan, CEO of DS Fashion, the successor to the Day Group, was sitting at a table in a restaurant with his fiancée Sarah. He asked the girl if she really wanted to marry him. 24-year-old Sarah, a curator at a recreation museum and the only daughter of the founder of the Hodgin Group, said she agreed. Sarah knew that she had the perfect husband in front of her, so she agreed. She didn't expect anything resembling love, because she knew that this was an arranged marriage. 2 weeks after the wedding, Ryan went on a business trip to the U.S. He was away for 2 years, and then he didn't even talk to Sarah when he returned home. But one evening, Sarah told her assistant Wendy that Ryan had asked her to have dinner with him that night. Wendy was delighted and reminded her that it was their wedding anniversary. While the couple was having dinner, Sarah asked her husband why he had come home earlier than usual. He replied that he was just tired from work, so he came to eat. Then the girl asked Ryan if he remembered what day it was. The man replied that he didn't know it was her birthday. Sarah said that today was their 3rd wedding anniversary, but their first together in years. The girl was outraged that her husband didn't even know when her birthday was. Ryan finally told his wife that the reason he had invited her to dinner was to propose a divorce. Sarah had not expected this from him at all. The young man added that he had left the divorce papers in the living room and that she just needed to sign them. Sarah was surprised that he spoke of divorce as something ordinary and mundane. She asked if divorce was really that easy for him. Ryan replied that their wedding was an easy affair, so divorce wouldn't be difficult for him either. Sarah understood that this marriage was loveless, and they had only been together for a year, but it was still hard for her to accept that it was over. She blamed only herself for everything that had happened. When the girl opened her eyes, her first thought was that there was light in heaven too. Ryan touched her forehead and asked if she was okay, adding that she had finally woken up. If Sarah had known then that it would be the last time she would see him, she would have confessed that she loved him. But now she felt like she was dreaming of him because Ryan had been too affectionate with her. The man asked Sarah if she remembered falling down the stairs. The girl realized that she was in the hospital. She remembered that in such cases, sometimes people lose their memory, like in dramas. Sarah assumed that this might delay their divorce because she really didn't want to divorce this man. So when he asked how she was, Sarah asked, "Who are you?" The girl did not expect that this lie, which jumped out under the influence of the moment, would become the beginning of a whole performance. Ryan informed Sarah's parents that their daughter had regained consciousness. They were glad that their daughter was doing well, and regarding her memory loss, they reassured the young man that she would soon remember him, as she only remembered the last few years. Ryan felt guilty about what had happened, so he spent 3 days and 3 nights at the hospital by Sarah's bedside. He only went home when Sarah's parents insisted. When Ryan returned to the hospital, he saw his grandmother in Sarah's room. The woman took her grandson out of the room and began to scold him for not being able to take good care of his wife. The grandmother said that he should have an heir by now, and now his wife was in a very bad condition. She begged her granddaughter to make Sarah remember him and bear him a son. Ryan told his grandmother that she was meddling in her own business, but the woman insisted. The young man asked her not to tell Sarah, who had just recovered, and left. 10 days later, Ryan was driving Sarah home in his car. He told her about how they met and got married 3 years ago. The girl really wanted to admit to her husband that she remembered everything, but she couldn't. Sarah knew that he would immediately send her divorce papers. When Ryan opened the car door and helped her out, Sarah didn't understand what was happening to him. The girl said she couldn't get used to having a husband. They entered the house, and Sarah saw old Wendy running towards her and smiling. Ryan told the assistant that Sarah had hurt her arm in the fall, so she shouldn't hug her. Wendy asked the girl how she was feeling. Sarah really didn't want to lie to her, but she had no choice. So the girl said that Ryan had been telling her about his assistant. The woman began to cry. She told Mr. Ryan that she was sorry that Miss Sarah had not yet regained her memory. Wendy kindly offered to show the girl to her room, but Ryan stopped her and asked her to take his wife to his room. The girl was very surprised and thought that maybe it was time to confess everything. When Sarah entered her husband's room, she found herself thinking that this was her first time there. Wendy went to prepare dinner while the girl remained to look around the room. Ryan suddenly approached her and asked if she had showered yet. When she said no, he suggested they do it together. Sarah, shocked, asked her husband what he had said. Ryan repeated it and added that they had always done it before. The girl knew he was lying because they had never been that close. A few minutes earlier, Ryan had asked his housekeeper if she had noticed anything strange about Sarah's behavior. Wendy had said that she had become somewhat insecure. The husband asked his assistant to let him know if she noticed anything. Wendy asked if her condition was that bad. He replied that he was just very worried about his wife. The assistant said she would quickly prepare dinner now. Ryan said she could take her time because Sarah needed time to wash her injured hand. Old Wendy had asked Ryan if he should help his wife wash up, and now he wanted to go into the bathroom with Sarah. The girl didn't understand what was happening to her husband and why he was acting so strangely, because she was the one who hit her head, not him. Sarah replied that she would handle it herself. She added that she wasn't yet used to the idea that she had a husband, so she wasn't comfortable getting close to him so quickly. Ryan asked the girl to be careful and to call him if she changed her mind, and not to close the door so that he could come to her aid if something happened. When Sarah was left alone in the bathroom, she stood there for a long time, remembering his words. She reflected on how her husband had become a different person. On their first date, his face clouded Sarah's mind, and Ryan's first words to her were a proposal of marriage. Then he asked how many blind dates she had been on. She said 3, and Ryan said it was his 22nd. To Sarah's surprise, Ryan said that his grandmother liked her. Or, to be more precise, she liked her as the daughter of the founder of the Hodgin Group. The man admitted that he needed to get married so that his grandmother would get rid of him. He added that it would also enhance her reputation. Sarah heard that Ryan had no idea about love, and he said that he didn't have time to date anymore, so she was his last chance at marriage. Sarah almost fell for this hook then, but she apologized and went home, adding to Ryan that he would soon have his 23rd date. Even though she had her ideal type of man in front of her, the girl couldn't make such a hasty decision. She wasn't the type of person who could take such a risk and get married. A month later, they met again on those blind dates. Sarah thought about Ryan the whole time. She joked his 23rd date had failed. Ryan replied that women run away from him on a date when they find out he has a meeting scheduled in 5 minutes. Sarah said she didn't know he was so busy. The man asked the girl again if she would marry him. Sarah was silent for a long time out of surprise, but eventually she agreed. She thought that the 2 proposals of marriage showed his interest in her, but he had always been cold as ice. What had changed now that he had become so affectionate? When they were eating dinner, Sarah was surprised that Ryan sat next to her, because he usually sat across from her. It turned out that he just wanted to help her put the food away. After all, it was inconvenient for the girl to do this with her injured hand. Sarah thanked her husband for his concern and said that it was not necessary and he could eat his food now. Sarah was lying on the bed in her husband's room, unable to believe that they would be sleeping together tonight. She heard Ryan get out of the shower and pretended to be asleep. The man lay down next to her and turned off the lamp on her bedside table. Sarah noticed that he was lying in a robe, pulled over his naked body. The girl realized that she wouldn't be able to sleep here, so she wanted to get out of bed, but Ryan stopped her by grabbing her arm. He asked if she was comfortable sleeping here. Sarah replied that she would rather sleep in the other room. Then Ryan suggested that she stay. He added that he would go to the couch, but asked to be with him in the room. The husband told his wife that he wouldn't be able to help her if something happened to her in the other room. Sarah asked him not to go to the couch, but to stay with her. When Ryan fell asleep, the girl looked at his face for a long time. She remembered that she had lost 3 years of her life because of that beautiful face. Sarah was very curious about why he was taking care of her in the hospital, almost without rest, and why he was so worried and concerned about her if he was going to get a divorce. Ryan woke up to find the girl asleep on his chest, holding him with her injured arm. Although it was difficult for the man, he didn't want to take her off him. On their first date, Ryan had a good impression of Sarah. She seemed different to him from other girls, but he actually liked her. When Ryan returned home after 2 years in the U.S., he saw Sarah and was amazed at how much she had changed, transforming from a young girl into an attractive woman. The husband thought about the fact that she had been very comfortable living here alone for these 2 years, so he decided not to interfere and move away from her a little, living in the same apartment. Waking up alone in bed, Ryan went into the kitchen and found Sarah making breakfast. He told her to rest, but he finished cooking himself. The girl thanked him for his help and for the delicious breakfast, but Ryan asked his wife not to cook anymore, so as not to overwork her injured hand. Sarah said she just wanted to make him breakfast, like a real wife would do to her husband, even though they slept in the same bed. Ryan headed for the door and asked his wife if she wanted to go out to dinner with him. She mentioned that they had never gone out together before. Sarah said she didn't mind, and Ryan asked if she would walk him to work. The girl asked if she had done that before. The man said every morning. In fact, Sarah never walked him to the door before work. The girl walked closer to him and wished him a good day, but for some reason Ryan didn't go. Then she asked if she should kiss him. The man replied that she did that every day, but that wasn't true. It seemed to the girl that it wasn't her who hit her head. It was him. Sleeping and bathing together, having breakfast and kissing before work, it all seemed like a perfect married life. Even though Sarah knew it was a lie, she walked up to her husband and kissed him on the cheek. And it was at that moment that he turned to her and their lips touched. When Ryan left, the girl stood there for a while, thinking about what that kiss was like. The man walked over to the car and thought that their first kiss was pretty weird. Sarah put on her evening dress and headed for the door. Wendy said she looked very pretty. The girl thanked her and sent the assistant home. The woman wished the lady a good time on her date, and Sarah smiled and replied that they were just having dinner. At that moment, she opened the door and saw the man there. When the man greeted her, Sarah almost gave herself away and didn't greet him, because she knew him. The girl asked the stranger who he was and what he was doing there. The man then showed his work ID, which said he was Kim's secretary, and said that Mr. Ryan had ordered him to accompany her to the restaurant. Ryan was already waiting for the girl at the restaurant, studying the menu. When Sarah sat down at the table next to him, she immediately asked why he hadn't warned her that the secretary would come to pick her up. The girl added that she was scared when she saw a stranger at the door and almost called the police. The man apologized, explaining that he was busy, so he asked his secretary to come get her. When the waiter came to their table, Ryan ordered a peanut butter tart for dessert. Sarah was shocked to hear this, as she knew he was allergic to peanuts. The girl wondered if he had simply not read the menu carefully. The man handed her a box of earrings and said that this gift was for her. He added that it was so that she could recover faster. Sarah was happy with the beautiful earrings, and because this was their first real date, and now it was a gift from him. During their date, the girl felt like her husband was behaving like a completely different person. She decided that he wanted to fix everything that had happened in their relationship before, and she liked it. When the waiter brought their desserts, Sarah stared in shock at Ryan's dessert, which was sprinkled with peanuts. She knew he always stayed away from peanuts, and the allergy couldn't have just disappeared. The girl looked at him for a long time, and Ryan asked what happened, and she replied that everything was fine. But when the man brought the cake to his mouth, Sarah shouted at him not to eat. The man asked why he shouldn't eat it, and the girl replied that she really wanted to swap desserts with him so she could taste his dessert. Ryan agreed, and Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. When they got home, she asked her husband to wear pajamas tonight because she was embarrassed to see him half naked. The man agreed, and he remembered his wife hugging his body. He thought it was better not to say this, because then she would definitely run away from him to another room. Ryan's secretary rang the doorbell, and the man went out to talk to him. Sarah went to take a shower before bed. Secretary Kim asked the boss if he had a dessert with nuts. Ryan reassured the assistant that he was fine because he had taken his pills beforehand. The assistant asked Ryan if he was sure his wife had really lost her memory, as he thought she recognized him when he came to see her off at the restaurant. Ryan replied that it was unlikely because she wouldn't even recognize him, her husband. Kim was about to object, but Ryan abruptly interrupted her and said that he knew his wife well. The man asked his assistant not to say anything to Sarah about this conversation. As Kim left, Ryan reflected on the fact that Sarah hadn't asked anything about herself at all since she opened her eyes. She didn't ask how they met or if they had children. She didn't have any basic questions. When they got home from the hospital, she knew where to go from the garage. Sarah climbed the stairs alone, without prompting, as if she did it every day. She wasn't surprised that the couple were using different rooms, but when Ryan saw her face at that moment in the restaurant, he immediately realized that his suspicions were true. The man entered the room and approached her. He asked the girl if she still didn't remember anything. Sarah said she didn't remember anything, but asked why he was asking. Ryan said it must be hard for her not to remember anything. The husband went to take a shower and mused under the warm water that his wife definitely remembered everything. That was what he had to say to end this performance. But for some reason, he didn't want to do it. After leaving the bathroom, Ryan lay down on the bed next to Sarah and remembered how he had deliberately distanced himself from her, thinking it would be better that way. In the morning, the husband saw his wife cooking breakfast again. He scolded her for disobeying him, and Sarah said that she was cooking only for herself, but she had made more than she needed, so she could share it with him. Ryan thanked her because he really didn't mind a nice breakfast before work. The girl admitted that she wanted to return to work next week. Ryan then asked if it was too early for her to return to her work duties if she didn't remember anything. Sarah replied that perhaps it would help her remember everything more quickly. The man thanked her for the breakfast and headed for the door. The girl followed him. Ryan asked if she wanted to tell him something. Sarah replied that he had asked her to walk him to work. Then he remembered that it was true. The man said he would be off work early today at 7 o'clock, so they could have dinner together at home. But he didn't go, so Sarah asked what he was waiting for. Ryan replied that he hadn't gotten his morning kiss yet. The girl said it would be better to wait until her memory returned. The man added that it didn't have to be a kiss on the lips like last time. Sarah reminded him that it was he who had suddenly turned his head in her direction and encountered her lips. The young man replied that he thought she wanted to say something, so he turned his head. Ryan himself knew then that it would all end in a kiss. He added that he didn't want to force her to do this and went to the car. Sarah caught up with her husband and hugged him. She suggested that they do this until her memory returned. Ryan agreed and said it was time for him to go to work and reminded him that they would meet for dinner. He knew his wife was cheating on him, but for some reason he let her do it. Now that they were getting closer, it seemed to him that this was enough to make him forget why he had been so determined to get this divorce. Sarah went back to the kitchen and drank a glass of water. She didn't know how she had dared to hug Ryan. She just felt like she had to. When Wendy arrived, she was surprised to see Sarah making breakfast herself with her injured hand. The old maid told the girl that she should have waited for her. Sarah replied that everything was fine and that she was used to doing everything with her left hand. The girl wondered why her husband suddenly wanted to improve their relationship. Wendy noticed that the lady was upset about something and asked her what had happened. Sarah asked the old maid if she thought her husband had changed since the accident. The assistant was surprised by the question, and the girl added that Ryan was too protective of her for a husband in a couple who had been married for 3 years. Wendy told Sarah that her husband was very kind to her. Wendy admitted that Mr. Ryan had asked her the same thing about her. Sarah asked what exactly, and the woman replied that she didn't find his wife's behavior strange. The girl wondered what her husband had planned. In the evening, Sarah chose a dress and asked Wendy to help her button it up because it was awkward to do with her left hand. Secretary Kim informed Ryan that the fire at the Gapon factory had been extinguished, and Mr. Saul canceled the meeting, explaining that he didn't drink without female company. Kim explained to him that company policy did not allow it, but he was adamant. Ryan was upset and instructed his secretary to find a replacement for Mr. Saul. The assistant was very surprised by this decision, since they had worked for 3 months to get this contract. Ryan ordered things to be put in order before the trip to Gapon tomorrow. Ryan looked at his watch, and it was already 9 o'clock in the evening. He texted his wife that he was running late so she could have dinner without him and go to bed. Sarah was sitting at the table waiting for him at that time. After reading the message from her husband, she became upset and decided that she was not a priority for him. At 11 o'clock in the evening, Ryan arrived home and found his wife sitting on the couch in the dark. He asked her why she was there. She was upset. Sarah replied that she had been waiting for him and thanked him for letting her know he would be late. Ryan apologized for letting her know so late, as he had been busy. The girl didn't understand why this situation upset her so much. She had put up with much worse treatment than this. Sarah replied that everything was fine and went to her room. Sarah sat on the bed for a long time because she couldn't unbutton her dress with one left hand. Ryan came out of the bathroom and realized that he should have helped her undress first. The girl told the man that she didn't need to help her, but he sat down next to her and said that they were husband and wife, so it was okay. Then Sarah asked if she should turn off the lights in the room. The girl put her arms around his neck and added that they were still married. Sarah thought it would be nice of her if he thought she still didn't remember anything. Ryan replied that if she wanted to tease him, that was fine. The girl asked if it wasn't natural between a husband and wife, and besides, it would help her remember more. The man threw her onto the bed and added that he liked it that way, leaving the light on so he could see her face. Sarah was scared and didn't know what to do. She had just wanted to joke, but now she was lying there, unable to move. When Sarah closed her eyes and resigned herself, Ryan stood up and walked to the door. The girl was lying on the bed, her heart pounding. The man was standing in the shower, wondering if Sarah would hate him for what she had done, because she was scared. He wondered what was going on in her head. Ryan knew Sarah wasn't losing her memory. She had never joked with him like that before, and now she seemed to be provoking him on purpose. If he had thought he knew his wife well before, he wasn't so sure now. Sarah dreamed that Ryan had come out of the bathroom and was lying naked next to her on the bed. In the morning, she scolded herself for this dream and went to have breakfast. Wendy's assistant was already working in the kitchen. She told the lady that her husband had ordered her to be fed and given medicine. Wendy added that Ryan is very caring towards her, even though he may seem cold to her. And with this care, he wants to show her how much he loves her. Sarah wondered how he could have loved her all these years without her noticing. And this was the man who had demanded that she sign the divorce papers. Old Wendy said that Mr. Ryan was going to Gapon on business today and wouldn't be back until tomorrow, so he asked her to cook dinner too. The girl put on a light nightgown and fell asleep thinking she was home alone again. During the night, someone pulled the blanket over her shoulders. Sarah woke up and saw Ryan. She felt his body and said that at least in her dreams he was with her, not at work. The girl told her husband that he looked best without any clothes on. Ryan had been calling his assistant all day from his business trip to ask what his wife was doing. Wendy answered first, then suggested that he call Sarah. Ryan replied that he had never done that before, and that the girl might not like it. He reminded the assistant that Sarah was still having trouble with the buttons and asked her to help her. After a work meeting, Ryan's secretary Kim approached him and said he had booked a hotel room for the night, but the man said he was going home. Kim was very surprised because they had to continue the meeting tomorrow morning, but Ryan reassured him and added that he would be there on time. It was already very late, so the assistant offered to drive him. The man replied that everything was fine and sent the secretary to rest. Kim watched the car drive away and wondered how Ryan had managed to hide his feelings for his wife for so long. Ryan saw that Sarah was lightly dressed and covered her with a blanket to keep her from catching a cold. The girl woke up and started touching him, which surprised him greatly. He wondered what to do, whether they should sleep in different rooms, but then he wouldn't hear if something happened to her. Ryan liked that Sarah was so brave, but it also saddened him at the same time. When Sarah woke up, she thought her dream had been a bit too realistic. When she went down to the kitchen, she saw Ryan there. The girl was shocked because she thought she was home alone at night. She asked her husband when he arrived and prayed that he would say, "In the morning." He replied that it was at night. Sarah said she thought he was going to stay the night in Gapon. Ryan said she should dress warmer so she wouldn't catch a cold. The girl decided never to dress like that again. The man added that he had made her breakfast and put her medicine in. Sarah thanked him and he went to work. The girl wondered if he realized that she had been molesting him in her sleep. As she approached the table to eat breakfast, Ryan came up behind her and put his arm around her waist. He told his wife that she had forgotten to see him off, but in reality, the man did it on purpose to get revenge. At night, he couldn't stop thinking about how she touched him, so he couldn't sleep until morning. When her husband left, Sarah barely recovered from the unexpected hug. She still didn't understand why Ryan was hugging her so tenderly if he was going to break up with her. The girl felt like she should hate him for this behavior, but she really liked the new version of her husband. After all, he had never been so gentle and caring. Sarah came to visit her mother, and the woman hugged her because they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Her mother asked how she was feeling and when the cast would be removed. The girl replied that it would be next week. Over tea, Sarah confessed that she would like to return to working at the gallery. Her mother was surprised and asked if it was too early for her to work. The girl said that she could no longer sit idle. The woman replied that she would be very happy to see her back at the gallery, and she was the #1 employee there, but her health came first for her mother. She added that the staff were doing well without her so far. Sarah felt sad and wondered if she should tell her mother that her memories had returned, but she couldn't do that because it would mean the end of her marriage. Her mother asked Sarah not to leave and to wait a moment while she answered the phone. The woman said she had good news because she had received Go Jun's phone number. Sarah was very surprised that her mother had found out the number of that artist from Paris. The mother told the girl that she had recently learned that he had flown into their city a week ago. She added that they must meet him at the gallery. Sarah jumped up and told her mother that she would do anything to invite him to their gallery. The girl had several reasons for wanting to meet him. Her interest in art began at an early age during her travels around the world. One day, she was in France with her parents and was walking through the Place de la Terte. There she noticed a young artist whose paintings no one else had noticed. Even from a distance, Sarah could see his brilliant talent. The girl then approached him and simply introduced herself. And now he was a world-famous artist whom many dreamed of meeting. She wrote him an email asking to meet at the gallery. Sarah was worried that he wouldn't respond because he had probably forgotten about her altogether. The girl was driving when her phone rang. She really wanted it to be him, and so it happened. It was the artist Go Jun. Sarah answered him through the earpiece. Sarah greeted him and said she was from Galerie Lest. She apologized for being so impudent in demanding a meeting, but she still didn't give up hope of seeing him at the gallery. The young man was upset that his personal information had been leaked online. Sarah suggested they meet so she could apologize in person. Go Jun asked if this was her strategy to lure him to a date. The girl replied that of course not, and admitted that she had been a fan of his work for a long time. He replied that it was very sweet of her. Sarah added that his signature style and use of colors will never cease to touch her heart. Then she said that she would really like to exhibit his paintings in their gallery. Gojin replied that he had no plans to exhibit his works in a gallery and hung up. Sarah didn't know what to do now because he seemed very upset. In her excitement, she didn't notice the person at the crosswalk and braked sharply. She was glad that the pedestrian was okay, but the next car drove into her car because of her. The girl hit her head on the steering wheel and lost consciousness. Sarah woke up in the hospital and realized that all she had done was scratch her head. The nurse told her that she had 3 stitches in her forehead, so it might sting a little. She also said that they had contacted her guardian and he would be here soon. When Sarah turned her head the other way, she noticed a young man sitting next to her bed. The girl asked him who he was. The guy said hello and apologized for crashing into her car. Sarah replied that she was fine. Besides, it was her own fault for braking so suddenly. The young man admitted that he had recently returned to Korea, so he was probably not used to the road yet. While they were talking, Ryan ran into the room and hugged Sarah. The girl told him that she was fine and not to worry so much. The husband told his wife that she would kill him. Sarah could not get used to his excessive care. When the doctor told him about the stitches, Ryan was completely shocked. He got angry and yelled at the doctor, but Sarah reassured him that everything was fine. The doctor said that everything was sewn up nicely, so there wouldn't be a scar. Then the guy sitting next to him told Ryan everything and apologized. He held out his phone so Sarah could text him her number so he could contact her if needed. But Ryan grabbed his phone and wrote down his phone number, adding that all issues could be resolved through him. Sarah and the guy were shocked by this behavior. The young man replied that it was not the best option to communicate through the victim's boyfriend. Ryan was indignant and said that he was her husband. The guy said he would call and left. Ryan wanted to help Sarah out of bed, but she said she could do it herself, and they headed for the door. The stranger caught up with her and asked if they had met before. Sarah replied that she didn't know. He added that he had seen her somewhere, but couldn't remember. Ryan asked the guy to leave them alone and walked his wife to the car. Sarah was scared of him because he used to be kind, and now he's so mean. The man told Sarah that he didn't want her to drive until her hand was completely healed. The girl explained that the accident happened because she had to brake suddenly, but Ryan didn't seem to hear her. He added that Secretary Kim would accompany her to the hospital tomorrow for a full checkup. Sarah told her husband that she was not a child and could drive a car and do everything herself. But Ryan asked why she would do all that when she had him. The girl got out of the car and asked her husband to give her the guy's phone number if he called. She added that she could figure everything out on her own, but Ryan said he wouldn't do it, and Sarah asked why he was acting like that. The man replied that he was trying to save her unnecessary problems. The girl replied that it was no problem at all, but that he was too sensitive. Ryan then got angry and yelled at her, asking why she couldn't just do as he asked. Sarah reminded her husband that he had just yelled at her. Ryan apologized and said he didn't mean to. The girl decided to stop it and leave. She walked to the door, adding that they might regret it later if they said anything to each other now. Ryan said he was just really worried about her. Sarah sat on the bed, wondering what she had done wrong and whether she should have been more lenient with Ryan. She got angry when he yelled at her. Sarah pretended to be asleep to show that she was offended. When the man entered the room and saw her on the bed, he turned off the light in the room and left. Now the girl was upset and didn't know what to do or how to reconcile, because they had never quarreled before, because they hardly communicated. The boy was painting a new picture in his apartment and remembered the girl. He was sure he had seen her somewhere, and now he knew for sure that they had met once upon a time in France. Go-jun told his cat Gomi that this was the girl he met 9 years ago in France. He couldn't believe he had forgotten the person who made his career. Go-jun's father was an aspiring artist who divorced his mother and moved with his son to France without any plan. The man was sure that the French would recognize his genius, but after several years of failure, he gave up on his dream and took a hard job. Every night he would drink and yell at his son, forcing him to give up drawing and focus more on his studies. Go-jun continued to draw anyway. At school, he was bullied for being a foreigner and for being short for his age. At first, the boy tolerated it, but then he dropped out of school and continued to draw at home. One day, the father again caused a scandal and tore up his painting, angry that the boy was painting again, and he had poured water over the other paintings. The man told his son that no one was interested in his paintings, so he had to study to support his father. The boy said that it was not his fault that he had failed. Go-jun gathered his last paintings and went outside. He just walked and thought about selling these paintings, giving the money to his father, and ending his life. The boy was sitting sad in the square with his paintings and thinking about how his next life would be better when someone asked him how much his paintings were worth. He looked up and saw an attractive girl in front of him. Go-jun said that one painting cost 10 euros. The girl said that it couldn't be. The guy asked if she was from Korea. The stranger replied that she was from Seoul and 18 years old. Go-jun said that she was a year younger than him. The girl asked why he was only asking for 10 euros for his paintings. The guy replied that they weren't good enough. The lady was outraged and said that wasn't true. The stranger admitted that her heart started beating fast the second she saw his paintings. It also happens to her in art museums. The girl said his paintings were incredible and handed him 500 euros for one painting. She said it was a crime to sell them so cheaply. The girl also asked the boy not to stop drawing because he had a great future ahead of him. She offered to be his curator to make him famous. Then the girl chose a painting, and the boy said that it had his initials on it, and his name was Go-jun. The girl took the painting and said that her parents were already waiting for her. When she ran away, the boy realized that he didn't know her name, but he promised himself that he would become a great artist in order to meet her again. So, that chance encounter gave him the strength to go this far. Go? June looked at his second painting, which had been in the square then and now hung in a frame on the wall. The young man decided that the only way to contact the girl was to call her husband. When he texted him, Ryan became furious. The man didn't like it when someone other than him showed concern for his wife. He missed his chance to apologize to Sarah. She didn't want to talk to him, and he didn't want to force her to. Ryan wanted this guy to disappear altogether and never text him again. He decided to text him to let him know that he didn't have to worry about the car repairs and hospital bills. So Ryan thought they would never see each other again. Ryan entered the office, where a presentation was prepared for him about the works of the best artists in the country who were recommended for cooperation with this brand. The director said he had seen this happen countless times. Each of these artists had already worked with their competitors. Ryan ordered the staff to find a new artist. When the boss left the office, the employees began to discuss what to do. After all, they had already looked at all the famous artists. The team was already thinking about looking for someone overseas, when suddenly someone remembered that they had heard about Go-jun returning to Korea. The others were shocked by this news. Go-jun called Ryan and asked how his wife was doing. The man didn't like it and said that everything was fine and they didn't need his help. Then the young man suggested that they all meet and have dinner together. Ryan understood that this guy was interested in his wife, so he quickly ended the conversation. The man was embarrassed that if the guy knew Sarah's phone number, he would have asked her out to dinner without him, without any problems. Ryan decided to make up with his wife. Secretary Kim brought him some urgent documents to sign, but Ryan said he had to go home. The assistant explained that it was very important, but the director didn't hear him. Go-jun was upset that he wouldn't be able to meet Sarah to thank her for making him believe in himself. Now that she was married, he knew he had to keep his distance. He was also annoyed by the fact that the girl from the gallery kept calling him on the phone. After his father's death, Go-jun couldn't paint even one picture. Sarah didn't understand why he wasn't answering. All the famous artists would want to work with Gallery Lest, but not him. The girl looked at his painting on the wall and wondered how she could find him. Wendy's assistant made tea for Sarah and asked if she had had a fight with her husband. The girl asked how she knew this just by looking at her. The woman replied that she had been working as a domestic helper since she was 19 and asked if Ryan was angry because she got behind the wheel with an injured hand. Sarah replied that it was. Then Wendy said that he was just very worried about her and overprotective. Suddenly, they heard that he had come home. Ryan approached Sarah with a large bouquet of flowers. The girl thanked her husband for the bouquet. Sarah looked very happy because it was her first bouquet from Ryan. That evening, Sarah was about to treat her forehead wound, and Ryan entered the room and offered to help her. The girl refused, but he treated her wound anyway. The man then apologized for his behavior and for raising his voice at her. Sarah replied that she was also wrong for avoiding him and refusing to talk. When the couple had already gone to bed for the night, the girl decided that they were getting used to each other because they felt so calm together in bed. Sarah remembered that she had been unable to sleep for a long time last night, after they had argued, and now the girl was hoping to fall asleep quickly. In the middle of the night, Sarah woke up feeling very warm and soft. She found herself sleeping in Ryan's arms. The girl wondered how this had happened. When Sarah fell asleep, Ryan stared at her for a long time, remembering how she had avoided him. So he decided to pull her close and hug her tightly. And so they fell asleep. The girl woke up and, seeing this hug, decided to leave before her husband woke up. She asked if it was a dream, and Ryan replied that it was definitely all real. Sarah asked him why they were hugging. The man replied that she was sleeping so much that she was turning in different directions, so she rolled into his arms. The girl was surprised and replied that she had never moved in her sleep before. She would fall asleep and wake up as soon as she did. Ryan laughed out loud. He told his wife that she had terrible sleeping habits. She was outraged and said that no one had ever told her that before. Ryan asked if she had slept with anyone else. Sarah replied that she hadn't slept, but she definitely falls asleep and wakes up in the same place. The man admitted that at first he thought she was mocking him because she rolls back and forth on the bed and then comes back to her place. Then he asked what it meant that he looked better without clothes. The girl blushed and replied that she was just talking in her sleep. Ryan pulled her close and asked what they were doing in her dreams. Sarah decided that she would never tell him about it, but the man was jealous of Ryan from her dreams and kept asking about it. The girl could not stand his pressure and ran away. Ryan was upset that he had messed up again, and Sarah sat in the living room drinking water, thinking about how she would never tell him that in her dream he had tried to kiss her. At the doctor's appointment, it turned out that Sarah's hand was completely healed and she could take off the bandage. The girl was a little upset because she didn't know how Ryan would treat her now. When Sarah returned home with a bandage on her arm, Wendy met her and asked her what the doctor had said. The assistant was upset that her arm was taking so long to heal. It seemed to Sarah that Ryan would stop being so caring towards her if she admitted that she was feeling much better. She decided that even in this way, she would achieve his love. Grandma Tara yelled at Ryan because Sarah still hadn't remembered him. She asked how she had even been discharged from the hospital if her arm hadn't even healed. The woman said that at this rate, his wife would not have time to give birth to his child. Ryan replied that Sarah's health was the most important thing to him right now. Hearing this, the grandmother was indignant that she had not arranged this marriage so that he would run around with her like a queen. She reminded her grandson that they still slept in different rooms. Ryan replied that he and his wife had separate bedrooms because he wanted to, and he was the reason they still didn't have a child. The woman asked if he really thought these lame excuses were enough to fool her. Ryan said no more and said goodbye. Grandma said she wouldn't just leave and let him waste his time on this lady who wasn't going to bear him a child. So Tara suggested that he break up with her and choose any other girl, and she would organize everything. Another option is to find a surrogate mother and continue living with Sarah. Ryan was indignant and asked his grandmother to stop talking nonsense. The woman said that it was all for his own good and he did not want to continue his family. The man replied that it wasn't that important. Grandma shouted that she had put him on his feet. Now he had to work hard and give her a grandson. Ryan said that no matter what he did, it would never be enough for her. The woman replied that it was a normal request, to give her a grandchild. The man said that she was saying offensive things. The director pressed a button on the phone, called his secretary, and asked her to accompany the company president to her residence. The grandmother got angry and poured tea on her grandson. Tara said it wasn't up to him to decide when their conversation would end. She added that cooking, cleaning, and raising children were things every woman should do. The grandmother saw that her grandson couldn't hear her, and when Secretary Kim entered their office, she left. The assistant asked the director if everything was okay, as he had been doused with hot tea. Ryan said it was fine, but asked to postpone today's meeting until tomorrow. Kim said he would bring something cold to put on his chest and a clean shirt. The man looked out the window and wondered why he had dragged Sarah into all this, because he knew what his grandmother was capable of. That was why he wanted to leave her and give her a chance to be happy. Sarah was sitting on the couch in the living room, wondering why her husband was talking to his assistant for so long. When Kim left the office, she went up to him and asked if everything was okay. The young man said that his grandmother came to the director's office, and it so happened that she poured hot tea on him. The assistant gave Sarah some ointment for the burns and asked her to help her husband. The girl ran to Ryan and asked how he was feeling. The man asked what exactly Secretary Kim had told her. Sarah told him everything she knew. She asked her husband for permission to treat the burn on his chest with ointment. Ryan replied that it was all small things. Sarah insisted, but the husband said that he would do everything himself. The girl asked if she could just look at the burn, but he wouldn't let her. Then Sarah tore open his shirt and saw the red skin on his chest. Sarah wanted to treat the burn with ointment, but Ryan left her. The girl was upset because it seemed to her that they had become closer. She asked her husband how she could comfort him. Ryan walked over to Sarah and kissed her, holding her close. He decided that it was her fault for kissing him because she was looking at him and asking how to comfort him. The girl really liked this kiss because it was much better than the random one. She felt like she could do it again and again if he wanted. At the presentation to the director, the employees presented the works of a young artist who impressed everyone with his bright colors and bold technique. Go Jun made a huge splash 5 years ago on the French art scene. And 4 months ago, he had a solo exhibition of his work in New York. Ryan asked the staff how to contact this artist. One of them said that it would be very difficult to do so because no one knew his contact information. All they knew was that he had recently returned to Korea. Ryan asked if 3 days would be enough to contact Go Jun. The guy said it would take a week. When Ryan agreed and left the office, the employees began to discuss that it would be unrealistic to do this in a week or even a month because no one knew his contacts. Sarah was helping Wendy in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. The maid opened the door, and Ryan's grandmother burst into the house, eager to talk to the girl. The woman asked the assistant to bring her some ice water. After drinking the water, Tara asked the girl how much more time she needed to remember everything. The girl replied that she needed a little more time. Then Tara said that she had a very strange doctor because today he told her that everything was fine with Sarah. Grandma asked who was lying, here or the doctor. The girl remained silent. This angered Tara, and she threw the rest of her ice water from her glass at Sarah, right in her face. The woman said she knew what the girl wanted, to live a comfortable life and not have children so as not to ruin her figure. Sarah held her head and apologized. Tara added that she and her husband had planned to have a child, and that was all she had to remember. She knew Ryan didn't want children. When Ryan's grandmother left, Wendy ran up to Sarah and asked if she was okay. Then the assistant noticed that she was bleeding and told Sarah. The girl said it was the stitches on her head that came loose and asked the assistant not to say anything to Ryan about the meeting. Wendy felt very sorry for Sarah. Left alone in her room, Sarah dressed her wound and cried. The girl had long known that for Ryan's grandmother, she was just a tool for having children, but she felt insulted. Sarah decided she wasn't going to lie about her hand anymore and took off the bandage. When Ryan got home, he immediately noticed that his wife was not bandaged. The man was glad that the wounds had healed, but Sarah couldn't relax because she wondered if he would start talking about divorce. She thought he was waiting for her memory to return. The girl said she was going to work. Ryan said it was too early, but Sarah said she couldn't stay home anymore. Then the man agreed and went to the door. When Sarah arrived at the gallery, she was met by her mother, who also happens to be the gallery director. She asked her daughter how she was feeling and if she was ready to get to work. The girl replied that everything was fine. Then her mother said, "Well, welcome back to the gallery, Curator Sarah." The girl sat down on the sofa and said that she had contacted Go Jun. Sarah added that the artist did not want to exhibit his work in their gallery. The mother asked if she had met him, and the girl replied that he did not even want to talk on the phone. But Sarah didn't give up hope and asked her mother to give her a few more days. The girl thought she should tell the artist about their meeting 9 years ago. The woman asked her daughter not to overload herself with work. In fact, she was very happy that Sarah returned to the gallery because she could be relied on. At the end of the workday, Sarah was the last to leave the gallery. A young man was already waiting for her outside by his car. The girl recognized him and went over to say hello. The guy said he was very happy to see her again. Sarah was surprised that he was so happy for the person who had been in the car accident with him. The young man was so happy because he thought he would never see her again. The girl thought he was acting a bit casual for a stranger. Then the guy asked if she had looked at the paintings in the gallery. Sarah replied that she worked there. When the guy heard that the girl worked as a curator, he was glad that she had done it after all. 9 years ago, she told him that she would become a curator and would definitely make him a world-famous artist. And she became a curator. Go was a little upset that the girl didn't remember him, but he invited her to dinner. Sarah asked why. Then the guy said that her husband didn't let him pay the bills after the accident. So, in this way, he would like to treat them to dinner and chat. Sarah was surprised that Ryan forbade him from paying for the treatment and car repairs. Go Jun realized that the man hadn't even told her anything. The girl said that he must have been very busy and just didn't want to deal with the insurance papers. Sarah agreed to dinner and said she would call her husband to see if he could make it. When she pulled out her phone, she saw 2 missed calls from Ryan. The man had never called her before. She called him and asked if he was free that evening. Ryan excitedly asked his wife where she was now. Sarah said that she had just left the gallery and met the guy she had been in a car accident with on the street, and he invited them to dinner. Hearing that his wife was now with someone else, Ryan quickly drove over to their place. He got out of the car and approached them. The guy extended his hand and introduced himself. He said his name was Guo Junyong and he was happy to see them again. Ryan was angry and told the young man that he was happy to see his wife, not him. Go said they met by chance, but Ryan didn't believe him. The guy asked if they would like to have dinner with him so he could treat them. Sarah wanted to leave, but Ryan had already booked a private room at the restaurant so that he and his wife could have dinner alone and without anyone disturbing them. If only Secretary Kim hadn't stopped him, she wouldn't have met this guy. He told his wife he wanted to have dinner with her, and Sarah added that the three of them could do it. Go-jun was happy, and Ryan was sad, but he said he would send him the dinner location via text. When they had walked a little further, Sarah asked if the restaurant was too expensive. The girl didn't want the young man to be uncomfortable because he wanted to pay for dinner. The man didn't like the fact that he had to worry about that too. Over dinner, the young man said that he had recently returned to Korea, so this was his first real Korean dinner in many years because at home he eats Western food out of habit. Go asked Sarah how long she had been working at the gallery. She said she had been working as a curator for 3 years. Go then said that he really liked the current exhibition. Sarah asked the boy if he was interested in art. The boy replied that he drew a little himself. Then the girl said that he was an artist. Go said he never felt comfortable calling himself an artist. Sarah asked where he lived. The guy replied that he lived in France, but wasn't very famous. The young man asked Ryan what he did for a living. The man replied that he did regular office work, not wanting to go into details. When someone called Sarah, she apologized and left them. Go-jun confessed to Rayon that he had already met his wife a long time ago. Ryan got angry and asked why he was here. Go told the man that his wife had bought one of his paintings when he was selling them on the street in France. Then she became his savior, so the guy admitted that he was just happy to see her again. By inviting them to dinner, he wanted to thank her for everything. Ryan said it looked like his wife wouldn't recognize the guy. Go replied that he had changed a lot in the past 9 years, both on the outside and on the inside. When Sarah returned to their table, the guy admitted that he really enjoyed everything, and the food was top-notch. Ryan told his wife that it was time for them to go home. Then Go went to the receptionist to pay for dinner, and was told that everything had already been paid for by the person who had reserved the table. The guy caught up with the couple and told the man that he wanted to treat them. Go added that next time he would definitely pay for dinner. Ryan said he wouldn't be there next time. The young man said it was a very expensive restaurant and he had to pay back the debt. But Sarah's husband replied that they didn't need anything from him. Sarah told Go that it was a pleasure to meet and chat with him. He replied that he hoped they could become friends. The girl asked him to let her know he would come to the gallery again so they could meet there. Ryan asked his wife if she was too busy getting used to work. Go asked the girl her name, which he still didn't know. She gave him her business card, which said she was a curator at the art gallery, Sarah Johnson. The girl said she would like to see his work and would be interested in talking to him, as he was an artist. When the guy saw her name, he understood everything. It was her, the girl who had been so desperate to see him and was tearing up his phone. If only he had known it was her, he would have rushed to her as quickly as possible. Go smiled and said he would definitely call. Ryan called his wife to the car. He remained silent the entire time they drove home. Sarah realized that her husband was jealous of her, but it seemed to her that there was no reason for this. After all, she had only given her work card to the artist. Then the girl thought that jealousy is a kind of interest. Therefore, in her case, it would be nice if he was a little jealous of her. Sarah asked her husband how Go was. She said she wanted to be friends with him and talk about art. Ryan got angry and said he should be the only man around her. That night, as they were going to bed, Sarah picked up her pillow and headed for the door. Ryan asked where she was going and where her headband was. The girl replied that the wound had healed, so she took off the bandage and could now sleep in her room. The man asked her to stay with him and said that he liked sleeping with her. But Sarah said she would be uncomfortable sleeping with him until she remembered him. Ryan let her go, but was upset that she knew about the bandages, and now she didn't need him. The man had hoped that they would always be able to spend a lot of time together, but that didn't happen. Now he was lying alone on the big bed and couldn't sleep. Sarah lay in her room, wondering if she should go back to him. Ryan lay in her room, wondering if he should follow her, and they each decided to stay. In the morning, Ryan made his wife a delicious dessert. Sarah asked where he learned to make such a delicious crème brûlée. The husband replied that he had tasted it when he was at the Picasso Museum. The girl was very surprised and asked if he had also been to the Picasso Museum, which is located in Paris. Ryan replied that he had visited many famous museums in the world because it was his hobby. Sarah said she didn't know he liked art. Then she asked the man what his favorite painting was in the Picasso Museum. Ryan remembered the title of the painting and replied, "The Weeping Woman." Then Sarah told him everything she knew about the painting and the history of its creation. Then the girl began to talk about Picasso's style. Ryan knew he didn't understand anything and wouldn't even be able to remember anything he read last night. He couldn't sleep and decided to learn something that interested her. The man understood that Sarah really enjoyed talking to the guy because they had common topics, so he wanted to enter her world by reading books about art. Sarah noticed that Ryan was looking a little confused, so she asked if he had slept well. The man replied that it was time for work. The girl apologized for talking to him like that. Ryan offered Sarah a ride to work. In the car, the girl received a message on her phone that she had been waiting for so long. Artist Go Jun suggested that she meet him at the gallery. Sarah was very happy. Ryan was angry when he found out that his wife had received a message from her husband, but he offered her a hug to say goodbye. The girl replied that she thought they didn't do that anymore because he missed the hug yesterday. Ryan hugged her tightly and said that was for yesterday too. Sarah understood that her husband was afraid of losing her, but why did he want a divorce then? But now she wanted to sit and cuddle with him like this forever. Kate's coworker invited Sarah to her engagement party with her boyfriend. Kate told Sarah to bring her husband because everyone at the party would be couples. The girl replied that he was very busy at work, so she wasn't sure if he would be able to come. Kate asked Sarah if she and her husband were okay. Sarah replied that everything was fine, but asked why she was asking. The girl said that she had heard rumors that they were planning to break up. Kate added that it might not be true. Then Sarah replied that she had recently lost her memory in a car accident, so she doesn't remember the last few years. But from what is happening now, she can confidently say that there can be no divorce, because everything is fine with her husband. The girl said that it is fine. Sarah sat in front of the mirror in her room, wondering if she should invite Ryan to this party, because then all the rumors about them would stop in an instant. Seeing her husband, who wished her good night and went to his room, Sarah realized that there was nothing to do because, after all, they had lived as strangers for 3 years. On Sunday, Sarah was going to a party and wondered if she should go without Ryan. Since it wasn't even a wedding, it was just an engagement. And she and Kate had never been best friends. At that moment, her phone rang. Kate told Sarah that she had sent a car to pick her up because she was afraid she would change her mind about taking her husband with her. Sarah didn't understand why her colleague was doing this, but it was very strange. When she arrived at the party, Kate immediately asked her where her husband was. The girl replied that he was very busy at work, so he couldn't come. Kate said that there was nothing she could do if he was at work. After listening to the oath, Sarah decided to leave. When she left, she heard other colleagues talking in the hallway. The girls were discussing the fact that Sarah had come to the party without her husband. They decided that the rumors of a divorce were true. They also gossiped about her husband pushing her down the stairs, causing her to fall and lose her memory. Then, about how their marriage was a business deal. Sarah approached them and said that they were acting like a bunch of cheap gossips. Then one of the girls said that everyone knew that she and her husband didn't get along. Kate also told them about seeing her husband leaving the hotel with a woman that evening. Miri asked what they could be doing at the hotel. Sarah replied that it might have been a business meeting, but Miri laughed. Sarah said that they found happiness in the suffering of others. The girl was about to leave, but Miri told her that Kate had personally invited her husband to the engagement party, and he had promised to come. Therefore, the fact that he was not here proved that his conscience was unclean. Sarah ran out of the house and wondered why Ryan hadn't told her. He hadn't come, but maybe he really did have someone. Perhaps that was why he wanted to break up with her. Sarah ran and cried, remembering the last few days, which had been quite pleasant. It seemed to her that she was the only one in love with this couple. The girl ran and bumped into Ryan, who had arrived at the party. He asked his wife what happened, why she was crying. Sarah replied that everything was fine. Kate came out to greet Ryan. Sarah said she was about to leave. Kate said they had just arrived, so she pulled her hand into the hall. All the girls started talking about the fact that this was Sarah Johnson's husband and the CEO of DS Fashion, Ryan Johnson. The girls said they didn't expect to see him here. Ryan replied that he barely made it to the party because he still had some work to do. But he really didn't want to leave his wife alone, so he tried to get through it as quickly as possible. Kate offered him wine, but Ryan declined because he was driving. She reassured him that drivers were waiting for everyone on the street, so they drank wine to get acquainted. Miri told Ryan that he and his wife looked very happy and asked where these divorce rumors came from then. The man replied that he was used to rumors because of his field of work, but they should be more careful with their words because it could offend his wife. When they went out onto the balcony, Sarah asked her husband why he was there. Ryan replied that he had been invited, but he was surprised that she hadn't asked him to go with her. Sarah remembered how a year ago she had asked him to go to her friend's wedding with her, and he had said no without even thinking. And now he said he would come here with her. The girl thought that it would be easier for her if he acted as coldly as before, if he was going to break up with her. She decided to ask directly. Sarah told her husband that she had heard from the girls that he was at the hotel with some girl. Ryan explained that he was in a meeting and that Secretary Kim had come out first to get the car. And this meeting was the reason he had been working so hard into the night the past few days. Sarah wondered if Mira had managed to get into her head and sow doubts about her husband. Ryan hugged Sarah close and said they had to put all the rumors to rest and kissed her in front of everyone. The girl was very happy. That evening, Sarah was lying on her bed at home and couldn't believe what Ryan had done. Kissed her in front of everyone at the banquet. It also turned out that he didn't have another woman, but then she wondered why he wanted to break up with her. Although she really wanted to know, Sarah decided she didn't want to do it right now. The assistant informed Ryan that their competitor, Tieng Company, was also looking for a new talented artist. The director was worried that they would also want to work with Go Jun. He ordered Secretary Kim to call the leader of the team that was looking for the artist. The young man said that they had contacted Go Jun, but he refused to cooperate. Ryan asked if the artist had given a reason. The employee replied that he was simply avoiding their calls. He asked for a few more days to try to contact him again. The director replied that if Tiang was the first to convince him to cooperate, they would have to give up. The guy asked if they wanted to work with him too. Ryan replied that it was just a guess, but they were looking for an artist of the same caliber as Go Jun, and he was definitely on their list. The man understood that he had no choice but to deal with this issue personally, and asked the employee to give him the artist's phone number. Ryan called the number and introduced himself as the CEO of DS Fashion and said he was calling about working with their company. At first, there was silence on the phone, and then the guy assumed that Ryan hadn't saved his phone number the way he had saved it. The man recognized the voice of the guy his wife had been in an accident with. The artist asked Ryan how surprised he was that Go Jun was him. Ryan realized that he was the same guy from the exhibition in France that Sarah had told him about. The man replied that he was very surprised and asked why he had introduced himself to them with his wife, Guo Zhongyong. Guo replied that he was very surprised himself. After all, DS Fashion is a very famous company, and he is not a simple employee, but the CEO of this company. Ryan replied that the two of them had a little disagreement. Ryan was very angry. He thought he would never see this guy again, but now he couldn't let his feelings get in the way of the success of his company's project. So the man calmed down a bit and suggested that Go Jun meet up. The artist replied that he was busy today because he had a meeting. Ryan asked him to let him know when he could. Go said that rumors spread very quickly, so he would call as soon as he changed his phone number. Ryan agreed and was about to hang up when he suddenly heard Sarah's voice on the phone. Sarah was sitting at her desk in the gallery when she received a message from Go Jun. He wrote that he was waiting for her at the exhibition by the paintings. The girl grabbed the phone and happily ran up the stairs to the second floor. There she saw the back of the guy who was looking at the painting and talking on the phone. She called him by his name, Guo. The artist turned and the girl saw his face. Sarah recognized the boy and asked why he introduced himself to her as Guo Zhongyong. Go smiled and said that he really wanted to surprise her. Sarah still couldn't believe that it was the artist Go Jun in front of her. Go asked if she had kept the painting, the same painting she had bought from him 9 years ago in France. The girl realized it was him, smiled, and replied that she was very happy to see him. The guy thanked her for finding his phone number and contacting him. Sarah invited Go to sit in the coffee shop on the first floor. But the artist said he didn't want to be recognized, so he suggested the girl walk with him to his gallery, which is nearby. Sarah was very happy about the invitation because she could see all his work. The girl said that she really liked his studio and all his paintings. Seeing the gorgeous, fluffy cat, Sarah said she was very jealous of it. Go said that it was Gomi's cat, his best companion during the painting process. While Go-jun made them tea, Sarah couldn't take her eyes off him. Go said she would drill a hole in his face, but the girl was so happy to see him again. The young man understood that the girl needed time to get used to the fact that they had known each other for a long time. After all, he himself had already considered this some time ago. Sarah asked why Go didn't tell her right away that it was him. The guy replied that at first he wasn't sure it was her, and then he wanted to surprise her. The girl replied that he definitely managed to surprise her. She admitted that she would never have recognized him because he looks completely different than he did then. Go told Sarah that on that day, 9 years ago, he was on the verge of giving up on everything. His father drank every day and didn't want his son to be an artist. The boy admitted that he wanted to commit suicide after his father ruined all of his paintings, except for the 2 he wanted to sell. That day, he thought it was the last day of his life. But when he met her, he breathed life back into him and started painting. He painted a lot and became a good artist. Go told Sarah that he was very grateful to her for everything. The girl replied that all she had done was buy a beautiful painting. The guy reminded her that they had made promises to each other. He became an artist, and she became a curator at an art gallery. Sarah said he became a brilliant artist. Go said she, as a curator, could make him famous all over the world. The girl agreed and was very happy. Ryan called his wife and asked if she was still at work because he was waiting for her in the car. Sarah replied that she had already gone home. Over dinner, Sarah told her husband that she had been meeting artist Go-jun at his studio, and he turned out to be the guy she had been in a car accident with. Ryan was furious, but he knew he had to support his wife. She was so happy that a prominent artist had agreed to exhibit his paintings in their gallery. Sarah told her husband that it was from him that she had bought the painting that hung in their living room 9 years ago in France. Ryan had always liked the painting, but he had not known it was his. When the director arrived for the scheduled meeting with the artist, Go smiled and said that now it was Ryan who was interested in them meeting. Ryan shook his hand through gritted teeth and said he was glad to see him. Secretary Kim handed Go-jun the contract and said he could edit something. Go-jun said that DS Fashion is a serious company, so he is sure that everything was taken into account in the contract. The secretary replied that it was. The artist told Ryan that it was a good thing he was Sarah's husband. He replied that he was here as the CEO of DS Fashion, not as her husband. After signing the contract, Go suggested that Ryan celebrate by having a drink together. As the man poured the drink, the artist asked if his wife would scold him for coming home late. Rayon felt like every time he opened his mouth, she was always asking him about Sarah. So he told the guy that it was strange that another man cared so much about his wife. Ga replied that he was just the only person they both knew, and he didn't like to talk about work over drinks. They had drunk too much because neither of them wanted to seem weak. Ryan asked what Go thought of his wife. The guy couldn't answer, so the man asked directly if he had any feelings for his wife. Ga replied that he did, but it was more of a friendly feeling. Ryan could see that the guy was playing some kind of game with him, so the man decided that he should make his move too. When he got home late at night, he rang the doorbell, and Sarah answered. Ryan pounced on her, started kissing her neck, and led her to the bedroom.